The second most important part that we would like to talk about is page speed optimization. I know all of the publishers on this webinar already have a clear understanding of page speed optimization, what you should be looking at, what Google has been doing with Core Web Vitals with LCP, FID, and CLS, which stands for largest contentful paint, first input delay, and the cumulative layered shift, which affects your engagement, it affects your viewability and user experience on your site, right? And Google has made it public that sometime in 2021, your search engine rankings will be based on how optimized your pages are. So you, as publishers, you have probably a few months, a couple of months maybe, or a little more than a couple of months to optimize your pages, both to render really fast as well as provide the user fantastic experience. So while we talk about this, there are two caveats we want to point out here. We've seen publishers on both ends of the spectrum, a few publishers who just focus on content and don't really care about page speed as such, and that affects your traffic. On the flip side, we see publishers just focusing out and obsessing on the page speed only and trying to get it to the green zone. As you can see on the right side, I've just shown you one example of a page, which is probably showing you a red score of 28. And you'd wonder, why is this person showing me a score of 28 when it looks pretty bad, right? So in most cases, if you have a plain vanilla site with just content, it's fairly easy to get that score into the green zone, into the 90s. But the moment you start adding monetization through ads, if you're looking at DFP, if you're looking at, let's say, Taboola ads, any of these ad networks, they start bringing down your page speed. So it is a compromise. If you're looking at monetizing through ads, this is something that you will be hitting. Some of the largest publishers across the world, you can compare your page speed with them as well. They will be in the same range. They'll probably be about 15-20% here or there, because they would probably have teams continuously working on that. But that's pretty much the range that you will be in terms of ads. There are other innovative ways of probably doing this, maybe serving ads from your own server. But of course, you need to figure out how you can, what kind of a hit you will take on monetization in terms of page speed, right? So that's something that as a publisher, you will need to figure out what lever you're willing to pull. The other thing around page speed optimization, which we see as a common mistake across publishers, is most publishers try and optimize their page speed for their homepage, right? And if you look at your Google Analytics, your homepage gets less than 10% of your traffic. Your story pages get over 85% of your traffic. So it's extremely important to focus on optimizing your story page templates rather than homepage. Yes, as a large publisher with a lot of direct traffic, with a lot of traffic on your homepage, it is important to optimize the homepage as well. But if you're getting a lot more traffic through side doors, we would highly recommend optimizing your traffic on the story pages first and then moving to the homepage. That's where we see biggest bang for the buck.
Right. Jyoti, I also have a question here for you. Google with time has given us so many tools to measure different metrics when it comes to page speed, right? Also, the way page speed was defined a few years back has changed completely now. Right? What used to be what used to be measured as how heavy your page is now is now getting changed to core web vitals, as you mentioned right now. What kind of tools should publishers be using to benchmark themselves? I remember there was Google Lighthouse. Then there are a few more tools which have been released specifically to measure the efficacy of the PWAs which publishers have. Right? If you could also list down some of those tools, it will be really cool as well. Yeah.
Sure. Google Lighthouse is probably your best bet on the front-end performance itself. That is something to take a look at. But as I said in the previous slide, front-end performance also is impacted by how bad your API servers are. So those are things that you should probably have monitoring on your logs itself and trying to figure out what your API response times have been. That Google Lighthouse or any other tool will not do. That's probably something that your DevOps team or TechOps team can set up to start monitoring API response times on your servers. The other tools that we've seen as well working, I think some of the publishers use GT metrics. There's also from Google, there's something called mobile friendly test. This is something to test your site about, is Google able to crawl the entire site? Is there too much JavaScript that Google is not able to read anything on your site at all of that as well. So as well as Google has AMP validators. So something to note is, and I'm going to talk about that in the very next slide. um, AMP validation pages, so make sure that your pages, especially accelerated mobile pages, are validated and set right without any errors. So those are things that we normally use. But for front-end page speed, we primarily rely on Lighthouse. That's in fact what we've got is we've integrated Lighthouse into our builds. So every build we get to know that if there's a change, if there's, let's say, a new JavaScript that's added onto your page, we get to know that it started affecting your page speed. So as your editorial team, you get to know, if I add this widget, I see this much of a page speed decrease. Or if I remove this widget, it becomes an easier thing. Those are ones that I want to talk about in the text that I've added to the slide. I think most publishers, and especially large publishers, would be doing the right things around serving from CDN, minifying your assets, gzipping, compression, all of that. I think a lot of publishers are already doing that. If they're not doing that, that's something that will be first things that you need to get to. Where we've seen biggest bang for the buck again on page speed optimization is images. The biggest amount of bandwidth on your site is images. And trying to optimize those images is where we see a significant increase or boost in page speed optimization. Three things out there: right sizing the images, making sure the image size is not much larger than the viewport that it's being shown in. So there's no point in getting a 2000 pixel image on a 300 pixel phone, right? So trying to, and even if you're looking at a 350 image pixel on a 300 viewport, 300 pixel viewport, that also adds about 20% extra in terms of bandwidth, right? So that's something that you need to look at. How do you right size your images? Lazy loading your images, not loading everything, but only what's shown on the viewport. And finally, Webp. Webp is a new format that's not really a new format. It's been around for a while, but most publishers are moving towards Webp, and it gives you about a 30% compression, better compression than JPEG. So these are things that help optimize your pages, and there are a lot of image libraries that you can use to get these things right. You don't necessarily need to do everything by yourself. We've also seen a significant bump in traffic by reducing JS components, like JavaScript components on the page. A simple thing, for example, if you as a publisher use carousels as a slider for images on your site, we've seen that impacts page speed significantly, right? It looks pretty nice in terms of usability, but the amount of JavaScript that it loads and renders impacts your page speed. You're better off not using that regularly. Maybe in certain occasions, let's say there's a IPL match, or there's something like a US elections that you need to show multiple images out there. Maybe it's worth using it selectively, but not on an everyday basis, because that definitely has an impact on your page speed. And it's not only that, even as simple as a JavaScript embed, which could be a tweet embed on your story page, that impacts. We did some analysis on that. That impacts your page speed by about a score of about 5 points. Just a single Twitter embed on your page, right? Of course, as a publisher, you'll be wondering, then should I just write text and not have images and stuff? It's a call, right? You need to take a conscious call about what are you looking at. Does the story really warrant 10 Twitter embeds in it? And if it impacts the page speed so much. So these are calls that you need to take as an editorial team. But from our learnings, these are the ones that have had maximum impact on page speed. And finally, the progressive web apps. These don't really impact your score that Google analyzes your page for, but it improves usability on the site. It improves the visual experience of what the user sees itself, because your shell is automatically loaded. The shell is cached on the user's phone itself. So it's or user's phone or desktop, and it's much easier, much faster for them to load only the content and not load the rest of your application. So these are our main experiments with page speed optimization so far that actually have helped publishers go significantly higher.
Right. Jagdeep, while the Lighthouse score, it's a great indicator of how good or bad are you doing, right? Is it okay? Do you think it's worth sort of obsessing about it compulsively and sort of saying, okay, I want to push my Lighthouse score from, let's say, a 60 to 65 to 70 to 75? and just keep on working it endlessly, because it can be it can be a rabbit hole journey at times, right? Where you just where you can often hit a wall very quickly, given the fact that you have to sort of balance out your uh, your ad uh, your ad monetization scripts, uh, and the page and the paid speed as well, right?
Right, and that's what I was trying to get to at the very beginning. It's what end of the spectrum you want to be, and how much are you willing to spend on that. Getting the paid speed scores towards 100 is going to cost you a lot, because your entire engineering team is not going to be focused on anything else but get paid speed done. And even a simple, as I said, a simple JavaScript widget added by your editorial team could cause the paid speed to drop. Um, a simple test is you look at the same page without ads, and you will see that most of the pages will render in about 90 to 95 as a score. But ads will bring it down, and there are ways you can optimize that as well. There are definitely ways you can optimize that. But these are conscious calls that publishers need to take, because you will be spending a lot of time and effort and money on getting your paid speed maybe about 10 or 15% higher. And the next change from, like, probably the next tech change on your from your tech team would probably bring it down by another 10%. So it's like a snake and ladder game that you keep playing. It's a never ending optimization, in our opinion.